What's up, everyone? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Niners News here on 49ers Hive. My name is Zach Hernandez. I'm joined by my friend Matt Llewellyn. Matt, how you doing?
I'm great, Zach. Let's get into it.
Today, guys, we're going to talk about Deebo Samuel and heading into year two. Matt, last season, he had a very productive rookie year, came on really when the 49ers needed him most towards the end of the season. What can the 49ers expect out of him heading into his sophomore year?
You would hope that there would be growth in year two of Shanahan's system. Again, that seems to be the caveat to everything. Year two in Shanahan's system. He had 57 catches, 800 yards, only 3 touchdowns, which was a little weird, I think, receiving. I would expect those to go up. I think it's very easy that he could top 1,000 yards receiving, especially coming off of the back of what he did. He seemed to kind of take some time early on in the season to get into it. He was more of a package player. He was playing 25, 30 snaps a game instead of, pretty much the entire game as he was doing later in the year. Weirdly enough, in the Super Bowl, the first half, he was going off, and then the second half kind of disappeared. And I don't know if that was play calling or what, but I would expect him to be a huge part of the offense going forward. And I think that he takes a nominal leap forward this year.
Yeah, it was really unfortunate to see him kind of disappear when the 49ers actually needed him most at the end of the Super Bowl, because he was gashing them on those end arounds, for 15, 20 yards of play, it seemed like. And then I don't know why Kyle Shanahan went away from that. But I agree with you. I think he's in store for a big year. I know people are going to be looking to Brandon Ayuk. He was the number one first round pick. They traded up to get him. But I really think all eyes should continue to be on Deebo Samuel. He was arguably the best rookie receiver last season, and he played in some really, really clutch moments for the 49ers, specifically thinking of, that Week 17 game against Seattle. That was arguably his best game of the year, and he shined. He was that touchdown spin move along the sideline, running that in. That's one of my favorite plays of the whole season, and he's an extremely dynamic wide receiver. We've seen him be able to, take screens, slants, whatever the case may be, end arounds. Not too many receivers can do what Deebo has done, and he's only been in this offense in the NFL really for 1 year. So I'm extremely excited to see what he has in store next year, especially with Ayuk alongside him, and also if they get the herd healthy with Trent Taylor and Jalen Hurd, no pun intended, but that would be nice. Now, you listed off his stats there, roughly 800 yards, only 3 touchdowns. Do you think he tops 1,000 yards in year two?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that a big insight into who Deebo is as a player is him talking this offseason about the hole created by Emmanuel Sanders leaving and how it's up to him to step into that leadership role for the wide receivers in that wide receiver room. And to me, that shows what kind of character he has. And you can see it how he plays on the field. He plays like a dog. He's not afraid to run into people, run people over, do whatever it takes. And, unlike some other 49ers draft picks who shall not be named, Vontae Pettis, he's mentally tough. So you look at the growth that was shown, especially after Emmanuel Sanders came in. He just took leaps forward. And if he can continue off of the back of that and continue to grow, which you expect a young player to do, he's going to be showing Brandon Ayuk. He's going to be showing Jalen Hurd. He's going to be able to maybe rely on Trent Taylor if he can stay healthy. And then, of course, there's always George Kittle. There's a lot of players on this offense that you've got to account for. So even if a little bit more attention is paid to Deebo, that's going to be offset by the steps that he takes forward. So I fully expect him to be near 1,000 yards this season, if not more.
Totally agree. I think he tops 1,000 yards. I think he's the 49ers' number one receiver. You touched on Emmanuel Sanders and how much he improved once he arrived via trade. When I talked to Kyle Posey of Niners Nation, he was talking about how Emmanuel Sanders essentially taught the 49ers younger receivers how to watch film, what to look for, things to watch out for. And that showed on the field. You saw his vast improvement in his play. And I think you're going to continue to see more of that this year. And also when we spoke about, they recently had a Zoom call where they're kind of talking to the media and they were asking Deebo, now that Sanders is gone, you guys are all relatively young. Who's going to step up? And he kind of said, I'm looking to step up. I'm not much of a vocal leader, but I do, my personality, he's not really that outspoken. You can kind of tell, but out on the field, he wants to lead by example, showing the guys what to do versus telling them what to do, which I think is the best trait of a leader. Somebody who's telling you what to do, it doesn't really matter if they're showing you otherwise. So I think that not only are we going to see a vast improvement stats wise and, production on the field, but also in the aspect of leadership and the aspect of helping the younger guys, whatever he needs to do to get Ayuk up to speed. Because he was in his shoes last year. I mean, he's barely entering his second year, and he has a lot to build on his rookie season. Now, how much of this, Matt, is predicated on Jimmy Garoppolo continued growth?
I mean, of course, you're only as good as a wide receiver as the quarterback can, get you the ball. So, Jimmy's going to grow. That's just, he's elite in almost everything except for that one Jimmy pass that he makes every week that you just go, okay, get that out of the way. Let's go. There are some metrics that he's not the best in, but you're talking about a guy that he might not be a top 5 quarterback or maybe not even a top 10 quarterback, but he's definitely in the top half of the league. It showed. He almost had 4,000 yards passing last year, and he had 27 touchdowns, a great completion percentage. And again, year 2 in Shanahan's system. Everybody talks about, well, it's not really Jimmy's year 2. It's his year 3. And to me, the 2018 season is a wash for me. He was gone after week 3. So last year, 2019 was his first full season starting. This is going to be his second season starting. And it's one thing to sit there and watch. It's another thing to actually get out there and do it. It's kind of like being a NASCAR driver. You don't know how fast those cars are going. You can watch them, you go, man, that's really fast. But until you're behind the wheel, you don't really know. And you have to get used to that. You have to get used to the speed of a football game. You have to get used to the speed of a defense, how quickly a linebacker can cover zone to zone, And to me, the more experience that Jimmy gets, the better he's going to get. He may be 28 years old in age, but as a football player in the NFL, he's younger than that. So this is going to be his make or break year. And if he grows the way we expect him to, expect growth out of those wide receivers too. The only thing that would hold Deebo back, I think, is if you get a Trent Taylor back and you get a Jalen Hurd back, and then it's a addition by subtraction sort of thing where you're not going to get as many numbers because you're not going to get as many targets because there's so many people open that just a different guy is going to be open on each play. So there is the case to be made that there might be too much here in San Francisco. And, that's the hopeful, aspect of it. There's been plenty of teams with, a guy like Odell Beckham Jr. who goes for 1,400 yards, but then they don't win anything because it's just that one guy. Deebo's going to get his no matter what. They're going to draw up plays for him. And you just hope that Jimmy and the rest of the offense spreads it out enough so that Deebo doesn't have to be the guy 100% of the time like someone like George Kittle was 2 years ago.
I'm so glad you touched on that because that was going to be my next question. Does Trent Taylor and Jalen Hurd coming back hurt Deebo more so than help him? It could be a case of that there's simply too many mouths to feed and not enough to go around. The pie, there's only so much for the pie. The more you cut it up, the less everybody gets.
But the key to that is going to be the culture of this team.
Right. Because
if everybody's cool with just having a smaller piece of the pie when it benefits the entire team, that's what you want to see. You don't want to see the diva receiver who's like, man, I only got 2 targets last game. You don't want that. That's why I've never been a guy who wants an Odell Beckham Jr. because I know the headache that comes with that. Yes, he's an otherworldly talent, but if you're not doing the things that he thinks you need to do, which is get him the ball, then he becomes a distraction and he becomes a problem. If the 49ers can keep their head on right, maybe hurt Deebo Samuel, hurt from a statistical point, maybe. But from an actual point for the team, I don't think so. So I think it's very important that the culture of the team plays into this as well.
And that totally reminds me when Emmanuel Sanders was acquired last season. There was a couple of games where he only had a couple targets. He was, doing a lot more in the running game than he was in the passing game. And I think one of the reporters asked him in the press conference after the game, how do you feel about that? You're winning, your team's having success, but you're not involved. And he said right away, the culture of this team is whatever it takes, whatever we have to do. It's not all about the name on the back of my jersey, more so as the one on the front. So, yeah. And I think the culture is already in place for these guys that they know whatever it takes, whoever shines, we don't care as long as we all shine. I don't think Tevin Coleman was mad that Raheem Mostert set, the record rushing in the NFC Championship game last year. Right. I think they're happy for each other. So to your point, I think that culture is already in place. And I just hope that having a breakout rookie season doesn't necessarily go to his head or, kind of make him think like, hey, I am a bona fide number one in this system and I need my, 90, 100 targets this season, because if so, then that might actually hurt the 49ers.
Yeah.
Now, Matt, you talked about also George Kittle. Deebo has a bigger year. We might see George's numbers dwindle as well. Is a lesser all-around statistical performance from the offense better than a couple of guys shining outright?
I think you want to spread it around, but that's the big but. George Kittle's the best tight end in football. He's going to get his. He's had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. He's going to be right around there again. It's just the nature. When you're that good, you're going to get open more often than others. That's why I'm not really worried about Deebo either. When you're able to get open, you're able to get open, and people are going to notice that. So you're still going to get yours. When you do your job, you will be rewarded for it. So for me, you want to spread it around as much as possible. It's always cool to hear those stats of, Jimmy Garoppolo completes a pass to 9 different receivers or whatever the case may be, right? You want to see that, because then it's hard for the defense to key in on what you're doing, and it's hard to stop you. And that's what Kyle Shanahan's entire offense is based on, creating mismatches and getting a guy open. And if you're, otherworldly talent like George Kittle, even if the defense is scheming for you, you're still going to get open because you're that damn good.
Totally agree. Now, wrapping it up here, Matt, one last question for you. What's one area you'd really like to see Deebo improve on heading into his second year?
His concentration at times can be a little off. He does get a case of the dropsies where the ball will just carry him off his hands, or maybe he shifts his eyes upfield a little too early. One of those was it was a deep ball that Jimmy ended up throwing to him where Deebo did a great job of coming across the formation. He went up to catch the ball. He had the ball and then lost it on the way down. I think it was the Pittsburgh game where he came across the safety and it looked like it was going to be picked, but Deebo just came right across, plucked the ball, did the hardest part of the entire process, which was getting in front of the receiver, catching the ball with contact, and then going to the ground is when he lost it. And it's those little things, or like on a slant, the ball bounces off of his hands because he's already starting to shift his eyes to look downfield. Those are things that are going to happen as a rookie, and I think those are things that he can correct. So concentration is somewhere where you'd like to see him take a step forward.
Yeah, we were at that game, and I think we went to grab a drink or something, and I remember looking at the television there, and I'm like, oh my God, giant catch. The crowd was roaring, and then we get back to our seats, and they're right where they were, and I'm like, what happened? What did I miss? And like, oh, he didn't catch it. That was a tough one. But for me, I think I'd like to see consistency. He was consistent, with to a certain amount, more so later on in the year. He was getting more comfortable, you could tell, and he was ready to produce as much as he could, but there were still times and stints where he kind of turned it off. He wasn't there. He wasn't the same Deebo that we were used to seeing, or that we've grown used to seeing, I should say. So I think we need to see him be consistent from, first whistle till the end, because that's what this team really needs out of him, especially right now. There's a lot of names, but most of them are unproven. He's proved in 1 year that he could be that guy. He could be that dog. So for the 49ers to be successful, he needs to come out and show it right away that he has it in him. He's got that dog, so to speak. That's going to do it for us today, guys. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Niners News here on 49ers Hive. Make sure you follow us on Twitter. Our handles are below. And also make sure you like, subscribe, and leave a comment.
Go ahead and click that bell for notifications. We're always bringing you that great 49ers content.
Thanks, guys.